Hey guys, it's Alli.tux. Today I wanted to try something new. Instead of standing up at the board and showing you examples, I thought I'd try it in a video today. We will be rounding to the nearest 100 within a million. That means that we could see numbers that have 3 digits, 4 digits, 5 digits, or 6 digits. But in all of these different numbers that have a variety of digits, we will be focusing on the hundreds place. Let's get started. Our first question says, round to 188 to the nearest 100. So this question is asking, 288 is about how many hundreds? Begin by putting 288 into your place value chart. You'll notice that I did not put it at the top of my place value chart because I am going to look at the hundreds place. When we round, we're trying to think 288 is closest to how many hundreds? The closest hundreds below 288 would be 200. And the closest hundreds above 288 would be 300. That makes the 100 lower than 288 and the 100 higher than 288 endpoints. We can see that on our number line, we have two endpoints. Our lower endpoint is 200. It goes here, 200. And we write it below the number line. Our higher endpoint is 300. The higher endpoint goes on the right side below the number line. Our midpoint would be the number in the center, exactly between 200 and 300. The mid stands for the word middle. So our middle point is exactly between 200 and 300. Between 200 and 300 is 250. We know this because on a number line, we have 0 and 10. In the middle is 5. We can count by ones. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 5 is exactly in the middle. It rounds up. Everything below 5 rounds down. This is an important rule to remember in rounding. Now we find where on the line does 288 fit on our number line. Is 288 below 250 or above 250? Well, we know that 50, 60, 70, 80. 80 would be above 50. So 280 rounds up to 300. So if we round 288 to the nearest 100, it is 300. We can do the exact same thing that we did on the horizontal number line on the vertical number line. We have our 2 endpoints, which from our place value chart and our horizontal number line, we can see the lower one is 200 and the upper endpoint is 300. Just like the horizontal number line, the vertical number line also has a midpoint. The midpoint is exactly halfway between 200 and 300, which is 250. Again, we look at our number we need to round, 288, and we decide, is that above 250 or below 250? It is above 250. So our number 288 rounds up to 300. If you need to watch another example, the next number is a 6-digit number. This question is asking, round 704,950 to the nearest hundred. First, we're going to write this number in our place value chart. We are rounding to the nearest hundred, so we will be paying attention to the hundreds place. When we look at the hundreds column, we see a 9. Now we ask ourselves, what hundred is below 950? What is the closest hundred below 950? Well, it's 900. Then we'd say, what is the hundred above 950? Well, if we went up to the next hundred, it would be 1,000. However, I cannot write 1,000 up here because there's already 4 thousands. So, it's very similar to when we were regrouping. We have 10 hundreds, right? Because one more than 900 would be 10 hundreds, but we need to add this 1 to the 4, which would give us 5. And then the 1 goes away. So if we think about it, because we know the numbers before the hundreds column stay the same, the 4 would be the same, the 0 would be the same, and the 7 would be the same. It's easy to see that 4,950 is between 4,900 and 5,000. The 100,000s and the 10,000s remain the same. So our two endpoints are 704,900 and 705,000. Now we put our endpoints on the horizontal number line. Because 704,900 is smaller, it goes on the left side, because when we count from smallest to largest. 705,000 is our larger endpoint, and it goes on the right. Now we will figure out what the midpoint is. So one thing we need to remember when we're rounding is that the very middle of the digits 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is right here. So we consider 5 to be the midpoint always. So our answer will, in the column to the right of the one we're looking at, so right now we're looking at the hundreds, the 10th column will have a 5 because in the midpoint that would be halfway. So our midpoint would be 704,900 and then a 5 and then a 0 to put in the ones place. Now, when you are rounding, I'm sure you've heard that when it's 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, it rounds down. So in our number, when some people say that you look at the bossy neighbor, whatever is in the right of the column that you're looking at. So we have a 5. And 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 all round up. So because it's a 5, we are going to round up. So this number right here was the number that we originally started with. So if it is exactly on the midpoint, we round up. So 704,950 is about 705,000 when rounded to the nearest hundred. We can do the exact same thing on a vertical number line. So we have our two endpoints. The lower one is 704,900 and the upper endpoint is 705,000. Then we look for our midpoint, again, which we just discussed. And so it's always going to be, if we're looking at the hundreds, this next column will have a 5. So in this case, it is 704,950, which also happens to be the number that we started with. So I'm going to round up, because when there is a 5, we round up, and it rounds to 705,000. Go ahead and get out your graphic organizer. Here is our tree map. This number has many ways that it can be rounded. We can round it to the nearest 10. We can round it to the nearest 100. We can round it to the nearest 1,000. We can round it to the nearest 10,000. And we can round it to the nearest 100,000. There is a vertical number line and a horizontal number line underneath each place that we're going to round to. Let's start with rounding to the nearest hundred, since we just did that. Because we're rounding to the nearest hundred, we're going to focus on the hundreds column. What hundred is closest to 845? So right now we're just ignoring everything larger than that. So if we have 845, we know that it is going to be 800 will be close to 845. And 800 is smaller than 845, so it will go below 800. Now we're thinking, what is one more 100 than 800? Well, that's 900. So 900 goes above. Now, all of the numbers before that stay the same. So we will still have 852,000, no matter if it rounds up or down. Now we have our two endpoints, so let's put them on our vertical number line. 852,000 is our lower endpoint, and 852,900 is our upper endpoint. Now let's find the midpoint. We know that 852,000 is going to stay the same. Now, because we were looking at the hundreds column, everything between this endpoint and this endpoint are going to be in the 800s, because we'd be like 801, 802, 803, 804, 805, all the way up to 899. So we know that halfway between 0 and the next 10 is 5. So we're going to have an 8 from the hundreds, and then a 5 because that represents halfway, and then a 0 to fill in our ones column. So our number will be 852,850. We are looking at our number here in red. Is 845 greater than 850 or less than 850? 845 is less than, just a little bit less than. So it would be right about here. So we can tell that this 852,845 rounds down to the nearest hundred, which is 852,800. We can do the exact same thing on a horizontal number line. So we have our two endpoints, which we can see our lower endpoint is right here, and in our place value chart. So write that here. And our upper endpoint is right here, and in our place value chart, which we're going to write right here. The midpoint again is exactly between 800 and 900. So everything before that stays the same. We continue to keep 852,000, and then between 800 and 900 is 850. Now when we look at our original number, it was 845 in the hundreds. So we know 845 is a little bit less than 850. And again, our hundred thousands, 10,000s, and thousands stay the same because they are before the hundred spot. And this number will be rounding down to 852,800. Great job today. I'm really proud of you. I hope you liked this video.